And we begin tonight with Matt Holmes, who is one of the leading retail specialists in San Francisco. He's represented some of the cutting-edge retailers, including Whole Earth and Pete's Coffee and Williams-Sonoma. His firm, Retail West, is at the leading edge of tenant representation and retail leasing. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
I read the article in the Business Times. That's how I was intrigued by your comments about how the whole phenomenon of this huge Westfield Center, its impact on Union Square, the traditional center, and then how all that fits in with all these different neighborhood satellite retail centers. You know, people don't think about it, but it's probably the #1 industry in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the Westfield Center first. What do you think it's done to Union Square? Has it stretched it out?
Absolutely stretched it out. I mean, there's two things going on. Westfield, I'd say, in a matter of years, will control the entire block between 4th and 5th, Market and Mission. Right now, there's still a couple holdout owners, but what you're seeing now is more of a duplication of uses. It's not uncommon to have a tenant on Post Street, Powell Street, and the shopping center. I mean, it's a completely different shopping pattern.
Who are the people who are, I mean, this is one of the things you do most.
Right.
You know Pete's Coffee, you probably know exactly the profile. When they looked at the Westfield Center, who did they think was going to want to shop there? Are they the same people that are drifting over to Union Square and will be drifting up mid-market if that develops? Are they just coming to the Westfield Center and leaving? What are the patterns that make it? It's a success, I presume.
Yeah, I think there's if you look at where Pete's is located as an example, the corner of 3rd and Mission, the Westfield Center, and now Powell Street in front of Macy's, all see drastically different traffic patterns. But I think Westfield in particular, with the college as part of it, the daytime population, the food court environment, the grocery store, and the BART, adds a whole nother component than traditional street front retail.
What happens now south of Market as brand new neighborhoods develop, you know, like on King Street? They're forced to put retail on the ground floor, but a lot of those are empty or insignificant, and yet there's several thousand people already living down there. Retail is always an afterthought. I mean, you don't know who's going to move in. Right. Are there going to be restaurants? Or how's that, as you watch King Street and you watch these new neighborhoods like on Rincon Hill, South Beach, and so on, more Mission Bay, who makes those decisions? You just wait for the market to come in and say, I want to be there, or do you have to push it?
Well, I think one of the biggest mistakes you see out there is mixed-use developers plowing forward with plans that have to have retail, but the retail's an afterthought. So it results in kind of generic storefronts, and a lot of retailers want to drive the process. So in my opinion, south of Market, south of Moscone Center, there's a great need for a neighborhood area. You've got a really qualified population. So will South Park reemerge as this great neighborhood district? I think King Street's fatally flawed because there's too much vehicular traffic going by there. But there's a plan set out by Spur to do a platform above the train station that would create a real sense of place in the neighborhood that would bring density down there and slow the traffic slowing down. King Street's a little challenging right now.
But again, what drives it? Well, we're going to get into some of the neighborhoods. What do you see as driving who goes in? Who makes the decision to go in? Do you have to call a lot of people, or do entrepreneurs from other neighborhoods or other cities or even chains, they're spotting these areas and they want to be there? I don't get a feel like that anyone's pushing it. It's always, as you said, an afterthought.
Right.
And it's going to be a big, major concern because a lot of these people are not going to have cars.
Right, right. I think that from the retailer perspective, you're looking at a city with 4 heads. You're looking at a strong neighborhood area. You're looking at a super regional international shopping area. You're looking at tourist areas like the Pier, and then you're looking at a financial center that brings in 400,000 or 500,000 people a day. So you've got almost this 4-headed monster in the city. A lot of retailers come here and look beyond the 800,000 or so people in San Francisco and say, this city packs a 16 million person city punch with all the dynamics it brings. This is how we have to cover the city.
Do you see resistance, though? I mean, it also has a reputation of creating more and more restrictions. For example, health care, vacation time soon,
yeah,
sick leave. even for temporaries, the kind of people who work in a lot of the retail, do you see certain national tenants or tenants saying, no, I'm not coming to San Francisco. I don't care what you show me in terms of the demographics.
It's starting to get on the radar. But this restaurant legislation that's been going on, as far as the healthcare over 19 employees, this is really going to. I mean, this is going to have ripple effects for a couple of years. The national restaurant community is just catching on.
Hearing about it.
Yeah, and we're for the first time talking to major restaurant companies in the Northwest, as an example, saying, do we really want to come to San Francisco? We want to hit the Bay Area, but San Francisco, the cost is just too great for us to go in there. So it's unfortunate, but I think it's going to start affecting us a bit.
How much does a restaurant in a neighborhood, especially a new neighborhood, does it lead other retailers in, or do retailers come once there's enough? Do restaurants come after there's a lot of retailers?
I think, what is that saying? The quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
So a retailer wouldn't be afraid, I mean, a restaurateur wouldn't be afraid to go into a neighborhood where there was very few retailers.
Restaurants lead the way. Everywhere we look. I mean, there was an article in the New York Times this week about Stone Street in lower Manhattan. All the food comes. I mean, look at Belden Alley in San Francisco. Look at the Mission, Valencia Street. Food is leading the way. It's usually the food, the arts, the furniture, and then the mainstream retailers go, man, this is really happening. Let's go in here.
So this restaurant problem, I mean, you bring up Valencia. I mean, there are still new restaurants opening there, and we've had the head of the Golden Gate Restaurant Association. They led the fight to challenge the healthcare. I mean, there's still a lot of people who want to try opening restaurants. It hasn't scared everyone away.
Well, you're just seeing a different size restaurant. I think the days of the heydays of the one market restaurants and the big sit-down 400 top restaurants are gone. You're seeing a lot of companies like Slanted Door doing out the door now, which is their quick serve concept. Because if you stay below that 19 employee radar, you're avoiding a lot of the scrutiny of the initiative.
I see. And I've heard that this takeout is really taking off. I mean, this is really becoming the way a lot of people are having their evening meals. So that's a trend. So they're adapting.
Well, another thing that's interesting, you bring it up, a new trend of retail is emerging entirely. If you go to Berkeley Gourmet Ghetto, there's an area that they have a kind of a market hall. Filetti's Plaza on Fell Street, same thing, where it's hard to distinguish where one store ends, one store begins. They're melding together with these common seating areas, like a la Ferry Building, where you can get a lot more bang, like a restaurant with the seating capacity, but stay under the radar with the square footage and the employee count.
It's much like malls.
Kind of.
But then again, that's a reaction to what cities done in terms of mandating minimum wage, mandating health care, mandating vacation time soon, and so on. The neighborhoods. The more I was born here, but I was thinking about this, not just for this program that we're talking about, but some of the other growth issues. I'm no longer looking at these neighborhoods as neighborhoods. I really see them now much more as little cities. They're becoming more unique to themselves. Thus, the retail is going to be characteristic of the neighborhood. So as you survey San Francisco, especially some of the newer neighborhoods and some of the traditional ones, how do you characterize them? Like you were quoted about Hayes Valley. That's almost become a new neighborhood or an enlarged little city.
Absolutely.
What kind of trends do you see there?
I mean, the first way you look at it is I typically look at the resistant levels, because the resistance will spell out what can and can't go in a neighborhood.
Resistance being?
Example, Union Street.
Yes.
If I represent a restaurant in Union Street, I can only put a restaurant where a restaurant space exists.
That's correct.
Okay. Chestnut Street, not the case. I go anywhere.
And that is a result of what?
It just neighborhood activism.
Well, of course, the Union Street Merchant Association is the one that certain leaders in there, they have prevented that from happening.
Well, they're tough. I mean, West Portal, there's no more banks in West Portal.
Okay, so no more banks in West Portal, no more restaurants on Union Street. Chestnut Street is...
They're just talking about adopting some anti-formula store use.
They are.
Right. After Apple has snuck under the radar there. So,
how about Bernal Heights?
Bernal Heights, incredibly anti-chain. Starbucks was stopped at the gate there near the public library.
Is Pete's considered a chain?
I try to convince people they're not.
You represent them.
Yes.
Did they start here?
They started in Berkeley.
And isn't that a problem that, like Soup Incorporated, they started here, and just because they opened enough, they're now a chain, right?
I had a meeting 2 days ago with Rick Karp, who's the outspoken owner of Cole Hardware. Great guy, very sensible, and he wants to make progress here. He's saying, hey, look, in a new project, why don't we just call out 15% of the tenant mix has to be local, of the local variety. I always said, why don't we make sure or mandate to change? If you want to come in our neighborhood, you join the neighborhood association. You pay an assessment to the city. You agree to local hiring. I mean, let's make this work. Let's not keep fighting free capital.
Polk Street, near my neighborhood, on Russian Hill, was boarded up and empty until Walgreens came.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a situation where the Walgreens changed the neighborhood, where there's now many private entrepreneurs there. Although I know the changing demographics of Russian Hill, but Russian Hill still has always been Russian Hill. What do we do about the fact that actually it's gotten stricter when it comes to national national retailers? They're banned almost in San Francisco now.
I think what people have to understand, and this is happening with the
how important is it?
Well, what people need to understand is the big picture. Like Cala Foods and Bell Market's pulling out of San Francisco, okay, as an example. They made improvements to those buildings and did things to those buildings that the small businessman could not afford to do. And now with them leaving, they're leaving a whole tide of space that a small business person can go into and operate. Blockbuster Video, they're the next to go.
They are.
They're not long for this world at retail. And so they leave, look at all the real estate they leave in San Francisco, drastically improved spaces that someone can get into and kind of feed cottage industry.
How does the Board of Supervisors, they pass these legislations against change because they think they're helping the local small business people. What is your attitude? What do you think the attitude is among small business people? Do some of them see the value of having a major chain in the neighborhood to draw traffic, or is it still pretty much anti-chain even among the smaller Cole Hardware, for example?
I think a lot of legislation started out of fear of a couple certain chains. Blockbuster, Home Depot, Rite Aid, and now Starbucks, majorly vilified. I mean, right now, when I start doing a deal in a neighborhood, the first thing I do is I talk to the head of the association. I say, here's what I'm bringing to the neighborhood. Can I get support here? What do I need to do to get support here? And if it's going to be an absolute no way, no how, it's not even worth trying.
We only got a minute left, some of the trends that you're telling some of your clients about that you see in San Francisco? You hinted at a couple. Some things that we might miss that you see coming.
High rises, man. We're going Manhattan.
And what does that do to retail?
Well, it's going to be exciting. I mean, it really focuses retail in smaller areas. I mean, related companies at Third and Mission, first successful project, great numbers coming out of there. Trans Bay Area, absolutely new neighborhood emerging in San Francisco.
But will they be traditional restaurants? What will they look like?
There'll be one block areas, but they're long blocks in South Market. So there'll be strong maybe a block on each direction, strong neighborhood pockets.
And there'll be restaurants and what other kinds of basic services?
Restaurants, service-oriented, yoga studios, gyms, a lot like Polk Street. A lot the way that Polk Street functions, not super regional, but
a little bit of everything.
Boutique-y, yeah.
All right, Matt Holmes, we'll have you back and we'll talk more about this.
Great.
Thanks for being with us. And stay with us. We'll be right back.